All right, shall we begin? We are in Exodus chapter 31. We're nearing the end of Moses' 40-day instruction directly from the Lord upon Mount Sinai, where he tells Moses, just go back and tell the people I want them to worship me however they want. No. Whatever feels right in the moment, just do whatever you like. No. He gets a detailed plan, instructions, commandments from God on how God is to be worshiped. What's the primary purpose of all of it? Which we didn't have Bible study last week, but 2 weeks ago. The primary purpose of all of it, of developing the tabernacle and everything in it, and the sacrificial system, the primary point of all of it is what?
God is present.
Yes. God is present. God desires to meet with his people. If your theology of worship is centered on anything else, as we're going to see in a little bit here, it's not a biblical theology of worship. The biblical theology of worship is established here. It's established in Genesis, but I mean it's really fleshed out here by God in Exodus to Moses, and the principles, as we've been talking about, that are established here are enduring eternal principles. But what is established here is God desires to meet with his people and to do so in order to dish out to them his forgiveness, life, and salvation, which can only come from him. So we get to chapter 31, and remember earlier in this section where God is describing all the elements, all the furniture, everything that's going to be in the tabernacle, even drawing Moses blueprints with dimensions, and but you need people to make this stuff. And God already has people in mind to do that. He's already gifted certain craftsmen, certain men to do the crafting of all the furniture. He's gifted certain women to do the sewing, and I mean God's already got it all laid out. As we're going to see, verse 31, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, "See, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intelligence, with knowledge and all craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold, silver, and bronze, in cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood, to work in every craft. And behold, I have appointed with him Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. And I have given to all able men ability, that they may make all that I have commanded you: the tent of meeting, and the ark of the testimony, and the mercy seat that is on it, and all the furnishings of the tent, the table and its utensils, and the pure lampstand with all its utensils, and the altar of incense, and the altar of burnt offering with all its utensils, and the basin and its stand, and the finely worked garments, the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons for their service as priests, and the anointing oil and the fragrant incense for the holy place. According to all that I have commanded you, they shall do." So God tells Moses, all this, you're going to do all this stuff exactly the way I tell you how to do it. And I'm sure as Moses is getting all this instruction, he's thinking, how are we going to do all this? Who's going to do all this? And God, at the end of this, God says, don't worry, I got it all figured out. I've already gifted certain people with the abilities that they need to carry out my commands to you in making all this stuff. What can we say about that? How does that apply to today? Or what principles are there that are still in place today?
Giving people different gifts for different.
Absolutely, and this is in the new covenant. This is laid out in the new covenant as well, isn't it? Like, what is it? 1 Corinthians 12, I think. Isn't it? I thought I put that in my notes. Maybe I didn't. Oh, it's probably my other notes. Anyway, but yeah, we don't have to look. We don't have to look that up. You guys all know the passages in the New Testament where God says, "I've given different gifts to different people to use in service to me and my church, and in service to their neighbors." So not everyone is, and not everyone is Oholiab, right? Or Bezalel. Not everyone possesses those abilities. You guys have seen me try to draw stuff on the board. I'm not an artist. My sister is. My sister is very good at drawing, but that passed me by. That skill. But you have different people with different skills that God gives still to this day. And the argument St. Paul is making in 1 Corinthians is that God gives different people different gifts, but all those gifts are put together to form one body, the church. Not everybody is gifted with the ability to teach. Not everybody is gifted with the ability to give, or to sing, or right, so forth and so on. But God assembles all His people together, provides all the gifts you need to receive His gifts from Him. That's the point. So there's not much more to say to that, other than, like I said, God's got it all figured out. He's got it all under control. He doesn't even, this is what I want to say, He doesn't even leave this part optional. It's not like, there's no bidding for the contracts here, right? No. Go get Bezalel and Oholiab. They're going to be the chiefs here. They'll figure out other men to help them do this stuff. But anyway. And then you get to this last section, which the Lord is let's say it this way. You get the sense that one thing you have to say is, when you're reading throughout the Old Testament, when you're reading through the Old Testament, the Sabbath is very important to God. Right? You can't miss it. He says it over and over again. It's one of His commandments. It's right after, don't have other gods and don't take my name in vain, and remember the Sabbath. So you can understand, this is what I want to say, you can understand why when you get to Jesus' day, the religious leaders are so obsessed with Sabbath day regulations. You can see why, because it's repeated over and over by the Lord throughout the Old Testament that to remember to keep the Sabbath. And he puts strict rules on those who disobey and don't keep the Sabbath, namely death. Expulsion or death, right? So when Jesus comes along and He starts doing things on the Sabbath, they lose their boards, right? They can't process it. What are you doing? You can't heal on the Sabbath. What's the problem with that? if we can say on the one hand that God obviously wants us to take the Sabbath very seriously. It's repeated over and over again with strict penalties if you don't. But on the other hand, these guys come along and they're telling the Lord of the Sabbath, the one who instituted the Sabbath, that he's breaking the Sabbath. How do you get from, what's the disconnect there?
Jesus is our Sabbath rest.
Okay. What else? Yes, absolutely. Yes.
He said the Sabbath was made for man, not the Sabbath. And the other things he's
Okay, yes. The Sabbath was a gift given to men, right? It was made for man. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. So what are they missing? What did they turn the Sabbath into?
Their work. They're making
Yes.
Sabbath law.
Yes. Yes. The Sabbath was always meant to be a gift, not a work, not another burden. I mean, just think about it. God does all of his creative work in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rests. Now, and here's the other thing you have to remember. When we say that Sabbath means rest, right? Which it does, but it doesn't mean go lounge in your lazy boy all day.
Watch football and hockey.
Right, and watch and binge watch whatever streaming show you're watching at that time.
Don't tell Larry that, please. Because
Well, this is a common misunderstanding that so many people have. Now, let me say that there's nothing wrong with that. Some days I go home from church and I sit until night, or I take a nap until night, and I go play hockey. But this is a common misunderstanding people have that Sabbath means, this is where they went astray. Sabbath means that you just stop doing everything and you just sit. In other words, it's like it's a day that you hear people say it's a day to recharge your body and stuff like that. But who's the first one to observe the Sabbath? God. Did God stop working on the Sabbath? He rested, right, from all the work that he had done. But did he go kick back at his lazy boy and just, this is how people think that the Sabbath, huh?
The lights still stayed on.
Right. Only because he continued to, in his divine providence, care and nurture his creation, care for and nurture his creation, right? In other words, God's and his Sabbath rest is not going and taking a nap. His Sabbath rest means that all the work he had done is now finished. His creative work is done, and now he rests from that creative work to care for that creative work now. You with me? Do you see that it's not let's just take the day off and sit in our lazy boy. That's not you're not observing the Sabbath. You're getting a nice day of rest, nothing wrong with that. But that's not the Sabbath. Now connect those with what Carol said about they turned it into works, right? And how it doesn't just mean rest, as in lounge around all day. What if God rested from all the creative work he did on the seventh day? How do we observe the Sabbath today? Okay, yeah, worshiping him for sure. How about this? I won't make you struggle with it too long. I think it's a genius question. You guys are dismissing it, but whatever.
it is. I was like, what does this mean?
And what does this mean? Right.
Well, right, but it's like, yeah.
How about this? Think of it this way. I just want you to see the parallel here. So God did all the creative work in 6 days, and then he rested on the Sabbath. How about if you think of it this way? all of the the work of the new creation is finished on the sixth day, right? What's Good Friday? The sixth day. All of the creative work of the new creation is finished on the sixth day, and what does Christ do on the seventh day? He rests. And then he rises on the eighth day and ushers in the eternal day, right? Now, so how do you observe the Sabbath? Worship, yes, say more. Let me say it this way. I just want you. How did Adam and Eve keep the Sabbath before God told Moses or eventually established the Sabbath day? How did they keep the Sabbath? Huh? Okay.
Well, they didn't have to hold, move on and all of that stuff, so it isn't like you can say, well, we're not gonna do that today.
Right, exactly right. This is my point. So it wasn't refraining from that kind of activity, right? There was none of that. How were they living in the Sabbath? They were resting in God's creative work. They were resting from any work they had to do to please God. They were receiving from God the provisions of His work. How did they observe the Sabbath? They obeyed His commands and ate of the tree of life. What's the highest form of worship? To receive the gifts of God. How do you observe the Sabbath? By resting in the completed work of Jesus Christ and receiving the fruits of that work in His holy word and sacraments. That's it. It was never about, don't plow the field one day a week. I mean, it can include that.
You can't not milk the cows. You gotta milk the cows.
Right, exactly.
You gotta milk
There's
the cows.
right, and you're not. This is the whole point. And here's and Jesus comes along and he reveals the heart of the Sabbath, what it was always meant to be, by doing precisely what the Sabbath was given to do. He heals people on the Sabbath day. And the Jewish religious leaders lose their minds because he's doing some physical activity on the Sabbath day, and now he's broken God. No, that's what the whole point. The Sabbath is given for your healing, for your restoration, for your forgiveness, for your life, for your salvation, for you to rest in the completed work of Jesus Christ and to receive from Him His gifts. That's the Sabbath. There's so much confusion about this. In our day and age, especially with all the political and theological debates going on, Christians you're not observing the Sabbath if you deliberately take one day off a week and don't do anything on that day. You might be observing the Jewish pretend Sabbath, because that's what it became. It became what the Sabbath became for eventually at Jesus' day. It became a day for them to really show God how pleased He should be with them. To really to really show God that they're serious about following His commandments. So serious that they're gonna let an ox or a donkey fall into a well and not oh, wait a minute. No, they would probably rescue it. But This is what Jesus does to them, right? But they put loopholes in there. You know, if it's an emergency, then you can do something.
If he could live in there another day, like,
Yeah, maybe if your son's a good swimmer, let him be for the night. It became so ridiculously absurd, and it was a bastardization of what the Sabbath was given to be. It became all about me. All right, so
Does it make sense to say that you should refrain from doing something that will keep you from receiving God's gifts? Like, for example, it's a beautiful summer day and your lawn needs to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
mowed, so I'm gonna stay home from church and mow my lawn.
sure. Yeah, I think that would
You
be
don't really need to do that, to mow your lawn during church.
Right.
You should go and receive God's gifts,
yes.
right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Not as a some kind of requirement that if you don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So,
Yes, I understand that.
but we remember the Sabbath day by keeping, well, what does Luther say in his small catechism? What does this mean?
Should fear and love God, so we do not despise preaching His word, but hold it sacred.
And you're despising preaching in his word if you decide, you know what, it's a nice day, I'm going to mow the lawn instead of going to receive God's gifts. So yeah, I mean, yes. But you know, you can, but you're free in Christ too. I mean, you can't, you could say, this is going to sound bad, but really, there is never a good reason to miss church unless you physically can't be there. You know what I mean? Now, don't hear that wrong. It doesn't mean if you go on vacation once in a while and you don't, right? You know, or if you go during Holy, you know, looking at me, so skip Holy Week to go to Florida or some stupid thing like that no Christian would really ever do. But anyway, you know, you don't want to get too crazy with it and then end up in their camp where they make all these, where they make it some kind of immortal sin. But at the same time, there was, I'm trying to think as I'm talking, and I can't do that. I can't think and talk at the same time. Or chew gum. Or chew gum and talk at the same time. But I can't remember the pastor, not a Lutheran, but he had a great quote. I included it in a sermon a couple years ago. But it was something about how, imagine if the early Christians who were being persecuted thought going to a soccer game for their kids was more important than going to church. You know, or I mean, his point was, we got a lot of problems in Western Christianity because we're so spoiled. And, you know, so when you're spoiled, church becomes optional. You don't have that luxury when you're being told that you better not worship, you better not come together. We'll throw you in jail or kill you. You know, how can you compare the two faiths is his point. The faith that says, I'd rather die than not go to the house of the Lord, and the faith that says, it's a sunny day, good day to mow the lawn, relax, have a couple beers, I'll skip church this week. And there's a lot of the latter going on. Not just, I mean, across the board. And that has a lot to do with, I mean, we've fallen prey to the devil. The devil is shaped. Paul Harvey was right. Way back when he said, if I were the devil. Then he went on that whole, I mean, it's just brilliant. It's like 1960s or something. Everything he says is just the devil did everything. It's like that the devil was listening to Paul Harvey that day and said, "That's what, good idea, Paul. Let me do this."
Still relevant today, too.
Right? You know, if I were the devil, I'd get rid of, I'd turn Sundays into just another day of the week. You know? We're all old enough, probably you are too, to remember when Sundays were church day.
That was the only time we were quiet in the car.
And it used to be too, even throughout the whole year, it was Wednesdays and Sundays. A lot of Wednesdays, you didn't have a lot of activities planned on Wednesday evenings because a lot of churches had services that night.
Sunday night?
Sunday, all the businesses were closed. So you couldn't, you know, you couldn't go somewhere else that day. So you were forced to go to church, you know. But I mean, there's a lot of truth to all of that. But here's the thing, you could start blaming the devil and everybody else, but it's really our fault. The Christians let this happen. When they started opening businesses on Sundays and making it just another day of the week, then the sports people came along and said, you know what? Let's start scheduling sports on Sundays too. And and it's a tough call for even Christian parents. They might have a kid that's, going for a scholarship or something, and he's required to practice that day or play the game, that whatever. It's just, but there was no large movement among Christians to take a stand against that and say, no, we're not going to participate in that. This is Sunday. This is the day that we dedicate to the Lord, right? The day we receive his gifts. Anyway. So let's just read through this and then I should have read through it first. And the Lord said to Moses, you are to speak to the people of Israel and say, above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths. So above all, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I, Yahweh, make you holy. Wait a minute, there's a connector there, isn't there?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of the Sabbath? For Yahweh to make you holy, to sanctify you. This is how most people read it. This is how the Jews came to read it. This is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may show me how holy you are. Totally changes the meaning, doesn't it?
Yep.
You shall keep the Sabbath because it is holy for you. Change it. You shall keep the Sabbath to show that you are holy for me. See, this is what happened. Everyone who profanes it shall be put to death. So it's serious. Whoever does any work on it, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death. You think he's serious? Whenever you see this kind of repetitive stuff in Scripture, take it seriously. Therefore the people of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath throughout their generations as a covenant forever. It is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel, that in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. The Sabbath is given to you for me to make you holy, so that I might give you rest and refreshment, so that you might receive from me my gifts. That's the Sabbath. And he gave to Moses, when he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, the 3 tablets, and then Moses dropped one, he said, the 15 commandments, the 10. He gave him the 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone written with the finger of God. God wrote these. So on these two tablets, you finally get the tablets of the 10 Commandments. After all that, right? So the movie's kind of wrong. the movie reduces a lot of stuff, and it skips a lot of stuff. But Moses got the 10 Commandments on 2 stone tablets. He's been up there 40 days. The two stone tablets, which contain the 10 Commandments, the 10 words of Yahweh, right? Those become holy and sacred, and they're placed inside the Ark of the Covenant because they're written by the finger of God. But they control everything else. Because Moses brought a lot more down than just the 2 tablets of stone. He brought blueprints down and the book of the covenant, right? I mean, he took a lot of notes, and there's a lot of instruction that he was given. It wasn't just the 10 Commandments. But those 2 are highlighted because, or the 10 Commandments, the 2 stone tablets are highlighted because upon them rest the foundation for everything else. What's the purpose of the tabernacle and God meeting with his people? To restore them for breaking these 10 words. To forgive them for breaking these 10 words. And they will. So the law is given primarily. The law shows the will of God. This is the will of God. You shall have no other gods. You shall not take my name, right? Those 10 words of God, of Yahweh, reveal the will of God. The reason they're given to you is to show you exactly how you fall short of fulfilling his will for you. To show you your sin. People say, well, wait a minute, why he wants us to strive to keep the 10 Commandments. Whoever said he doesn't? You'll never hear me say he doesn't want you to strive to keep the 10. Of course he does. Here's my 10 words. Go and do this. Right? What's our problem? We can't. Unless we can do the first tablet, right? We can do the first 3 commandments. Isn't that what the lawyer said in the parable of the Good Samaritan? It always cracks me up. He has, love. Jesus says, "What's written in the law? How do you read it?" And he says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, body and strength, and your neighbor as yourself." Right? And Jesus says, "Yeah, do that, and you will live." Roger that. And Jesus is whispering, "Good luck with that, by the way." And then the lawyer says, he thinks about it, and he's like, "Okay, but what about this neighbor thing?" But he skips the whole, "You shall have no other gods before me." He skips the first table of the law where you shall love the Lord your God with all your... He thinks he's getting that done. That's fine. I ain't got no problem with that. I've been doing that since I first heard the law. I've been keeping that. This neighbor thing I struggle with a little bit because there's a lot of people I don't like. A lot of people that are unlikable. Do I have to? Just funny. All right, so we have it. It's all set. Moses has got the 10 Commandments. Got all the instructions for the tabernacle and all its stuff. He earlier got gave them the book of the covenant, how they're going to live, right? The last time he came down the mountain. Been up there 40 days. He's ready. God's been telling him, this is how you will worship me. And he doesn't even get down the mountain, and they're just messing it up royally. Chapter 32. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron said to them, "Take off the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. I wonder if he employed, I'm sure he didn't, I'm sure Bezalel and Oholiab were not involved in this. And they said, Aaron doesn't say this, but they said, the people say, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to Yahweh." And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now, we have to stop there. Because there's something people so often, if you just watch the movie, you miss this too. Is Aaron, because the question is, how can Aaron do this? Brother of Moses.
That was my first try.
What is Aaron doing? What does he think he's doing? He thinks he's worshiping Yahweh. Right? Now the people, they don't, and Aaron doesn't even know what happened to Moses. Been up that mountain a long time, in that fire, there's fire up there. Maybe Moses ticked Yahweh off and got zapped.
They don't have the 10 Commandments yet.
They do have the 10 Commandments, they just don't have it written down.
Okay.
Right? We got to remember this. They all heard together the 10 Commandments. Exodus 20. That's Exodus 20. They all heard the Lord speak the 10 Commandments to them. And that's when they said, we're not fans of that whole approach. We need you go talk to him. To Moses. But anyway, so what is happening here is the people grow impatient, right? God's not doing things in the time frame they believe he should do them.
Oh, wait.
Common sin. They become impatient, and they decide that they're going to worship God in their way. They want a tangible, they want to create God in their image. They want a tangible God, a God that relates to them. A God they can see and touch and feel. But Aaron is saying, okay, I'll give you this, but this is going to represent our real God, Yahweh. It's trying to merge a worship of an idol with the worship of Yahweh. And that's not a good idea.
When they come up with a calf, I mean, is that? I can think of better animals
Well, there's
or better things.
probably a note in there, but
Like a person.
Uh,
As a person.
there were a lot of pagan. There was a lot of pagan gods that took on the form of animals, and I think the Hebrew allows for this to be like a bull, but it could be a goat or a bull, or a calf or a bull. But to this day, Hindus think cows are sacred. It's an ancient pagan religion. So they want the idol, but they want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want the idol, but they also want Yahweh. But Yahweh is not a fan of that approach. What's the first thing he says to them? What's the first commandment? We know it's you shall have no other gods before me. But before he says, or what's the explanation for that? For I, Yahweh, am a jealous God, and I will kick your tail. I do not share the stage with other gods. Think in your deepest, most godly Charlton Heston voice. No. You do not, I'm not going to share the stage with other gods. You want to tick me off, that's how to do it. They got real good at it, right. Well, my question to you is, how do we see this today?
Oh, jeez.
No, don't we see this today?
You know I'm about to jump on my soapbox. And
Wow.
go ahead.
Making church comfortable for the average person. You get your bucket seat, you get your coffee from the barista out in the, what used to be a narthex.
Yep. Well, think about this.
You get your band, you get your big screen.
Right? What's happening here? What are they doing? I would argue they're still using Yahweh's name, right? But they're redefining how he is worshipped.
Right.
And reshaping him into something visible, controllable, and culturally familiar.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. So the sin is not just false belief or crass idolatry. The sin is false worship of the true God. That's the sin. And yes, everything you're saying, they're trying to create something that is, what does it say at the end there? They rose up to play. They want fun worship. They're still in shock over Exodus 20 when they were before the mountain and the Lord, I am God, right? I mean, you started talking to them, they're like, eh. This is their idea of worship. Let's make it culturally relevant. Let's make it fun, engaging, entertaining. But we also want to worship Yahweh. We've seen all he does. We know he's God, but we want to worship him in our own way. We want something that's emotionally satisfying. We want something that's culturally recognizable, and we want something, a worship that is on our terms. That's what's going on with the golden calf episode. Prove me wrong. That's what's going on. And I would argue that we see the same thing going on today when Christians employ these same exact principles. Culturally relevant, emotionally satisfying, and on our terms. I would go even one step further. Where's God? He's up there on that mountain. We don't know if we're ever going to see him, so let's do it our way. Maybe some of them were even thinking, if we make this worship loud enough and exciting enough, maybe he'll hear us up there. And if Moses is still alive, maybe he'll send Moses, right? There's all kind of, but this is exactly, I know beat this horse a lot. It's probably been dead a long time ago, but it can't be stressed enough. This is exactly what we see with the church growth movement. That historically, I mean, the historic church growth movement started in the 60s, got traction in the 80s, and there was predecessors to it, but what's the purposes of, what are the core principles of the church growth movement? Well, remove barriers. Remove all barriers to church attendance. What do they mean by that? Remove all the religious stuff. Design services for the unchurched.
And for Pete's sake, don't call them sinners.
Right, exactly. Well, that's a barrier, right?
Oh, big time.
Got to remove that. Design services for the unchurched. This cracks me up. You guys, some of you know the story, but I'll never forget arguing with my home pastor years ago when he started doing all this church growth stuff, and I was an elder, and and I'm arguing with him about, the hymnals. Here's the liturgy. This is what Lutherans do, and blah blah blah. And he said to me, "The hymnals don't appeal to the unchurched, Thomas." And I said, "No shit, Dave. They're not for the churched or for the unchurched. They're for the churched." So what is your, and I loved him till the day he died. He's a great friend, remained a great friend forever. Just, we had big differences on this issue. But anyway, so I don't want to give the wrong impression, but we would have these debates, talks. But what does the church growth movement want to do? It wants to create services for the unchurched. Well, what happened to the churched?
Right.
Well, seriously, what do they say when you say, well, wait a minute, what about services for the church? For the churched? Well, how would they respond? You've already been church. You already have the gospel. Our job is to get more people the gospel.
You only need it once or twice.
Right.
Yikes.
You already have it, so your job is to go get more people. It really, I mean, I'll never forget when I studied the actual texts, the textbooks for church growth movement. When I studied it, it was right around the same time Lisa and I were doing Home and Garden Party, which was a multi-level marketing plan, right? And we're doing this, and we did great in that business for a long time, but whatever. So you can have success in those things, just saying. But as we're doing that, at the same time I'm reading all this church growth, these texts, the core texts of this movement, and seeing all these core principles they're laying out, and I'm thinking, it's the same thing. It's just a multi-level marketing plan. Jesus is the product. The churched people are the sellers, and the unchurched are the consumers. And we need more recruits. Adapting worship, here's another principle, adapting worship style to cultural preferences. And then measuring success through numerical growth. I could tell you story after story of this stuff. I lived through it. So in many contexts, this leads, of course, it has to lead to contemporary praise services. Because the liturgy, the divine liturgy, is a barrier. The divine liturgy is for the churched. We're not doing church for the churched. You see, and then they, as it went on, they came up with all these This is how heresy works. Somebody comes up with it, and then others follow along, and they build whole systems upon it. Whole systems of theology upon it. This is how we're in the place we're in today, when you have so many people believing that, so many Zionist Christians think we need to go build a third temple. Because this dispensational nonsense was started, this heresy, it's a heresy, was started, and then eventually it was systematized. And once it's systematized, then it is spread abroad, it's spread everywhere. So systematized is kind of metastasized, and it goes everywhere. It's the same with this nonsense. If you read those church growth movement classic textbooks, and you're a Lutheran, you have to say, I am not for censorship, I am not for book burning, but these belong in the fire. They're garbage. And yet, look at where we are. Becomes systematized or metastasized, and it spreads everywhere. And in the 80s, Lutherans said, they're having fun, let's have fun too. They rose up to play too. They rose up and worshiped the golden calf of contemporary worship too. Like I said, prove me wrong. Because this is, don't make no mistake, this whole thing is about how God is to be worshiped. You don't get to make up your own rules. And everything we've seen so far is God established. God desires to meet with his people, but there's rules to that. Because he's a holy God and you're not. You're not holy. So you have to, so he makes ways for you to be able to approach him, but you have to do it his way. And I drew that on the board last time, and we went through drew the whole tabernacle, and then put the new covenant on top of it, how the gate is Christ. You have to walk through the gate, who is Christ. He alone is the way, the truth, and the life, right? And then the first thing you meet is the altar of sacrifice, because that's the only way you can get in, is through the death and resurrection of Jesus. What's the next thing you come upon? The water, the basin. Before you go in, you better be cleansed. Baptism. Then you get in, and you have the altar of incense, you have the light, the candles, and you have the showbread, the table, the bread of the presence. That's why you get in, to receive those gifts, to receive the light of Christ, to receive and you have the altar, the Ark of the Covenant. It's the altar, and from the altar you have law and gospel. You have the 10 Commandments inside the Ark of the Covenant, and on top of it is Christ, the mercy seat, the gospel, the propitiation. That's what you come in to receive, Christ. But is there in any sense that should be some kind of nonchalant, flippant, emotionally manipulative, entertaining, fun, rise up to play place? No. It's a holy place. But that's just because you like your style and you don't like. No, it's not. This is what is being established here for us in Exodus and throughout. I could show you throughout Holy Scripture, not just in this section. There's a very clear theology of worship that God teaches us in his word. And it ain't church growth movement, contemporary worship nonsense. In fact, that's the opposite of the theology of worship revealed to us in God's word. So the golden calf, I would argue, if you want to, the golden calf equals worship driven by human desire rather than divine command. It's my definition of it. Worship driven by human desire rather than by divine command. Doing things my way instead of Yahweh's way. Yah's way. And good Lord, this is everywhere. Comments, concerns, arguments?
Well, I think
Let's
as-
argue about it.
Well, I think as children, like I remember learning that they just went off the rails, created this whole separate God, this golden calf, and were worshiping the golden calf. Like I don't know that the nuance is being taught.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm learning something here, which doesn't always, I mean, I'm not saying I don't always learn something, but like, I don't know that I've ever picked up on that nuance, that they made the golden calf so that they could have a Yahweh thing that
Yeah.
they could cling to.
Yep.
Since that Yahweh up there is clearly having a conniption, they can't handle that, so let's create something that's more suitable for us, that we can relate to. Like, I
Well,
don't
let's
know that I
approach
caught
let's
that yet.
approach Yahweh in our way.
In our way.
In a comfortable way.
In a comfortable way,
Something
correct.
we can see.
Something we can see,
Right.
tangible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
With stuff that we bring, that we've created.
And according to a style we prefer and we like
Yeah.
and we enjoy.
Yeah, it's not
So
just
we
like,
go play.
So we can go play.
yeah, it's not just that they cut Yahweh off, they just made Yahweh what they wanted him to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They recreated him in their image. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying that's.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're bringing that up because a lot of people read this or they think about the golden calf and they're thinking the way you were taught as a child that they just decided we're going to create a calf and worship a completely different God. But they're not. But that's not what they're doing.
Right.
Some of them may have been thinking that, but
Yeah, but it's a little more complex than that.
it's a lot more complex than that. Right.
Complex than that.
Yeah.
It's kind of more diabolical.
Do you see though? Do you see that this is centered
Yeah.
on worship?
Yeah.
Right? What has Moses been getting? What has God been doing with Moses for 40 days? Telling him how he is to be worshipped. And before Moses gets down the mountain, the people are saying, we'll worship you the way we want to worship you.
It's almost like God knew.
It's almost like God knew. Imagine that. Imagine that. It's almost like he had.
Moses, when you get
It's almost like he had a-
You're gonna be doing stupid stuff.
Right, exactly.
He's
Yeah.
gonna know.
So, did the gold calf have anything to do with Egypt, where they came from?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they would definitely have, Egyptian gods. There are some who argue that there's no equivalent to this among the pagans, so this was them making Yahweh into their image, like a new. I don't know if that's the case. You know what I mean? It's not like they're saying, okay, we're now going to worship one of the Egyptian gods. They're not saying that. It's idolatry because anything mixed with Yahweh is idolatry. But they want this. I kind of like that argument that they're trying to make something new that's not part of an existing pagan religion. I don't know. And this will be a representation for them of Yahweh, their God. Yeah.
So a couple other
No, go ahead.
questions to kind of follow. So they got the first commandment, but also said, no graven images.
Now, what was Aaron thinking?
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. You're trying to excuse his behavior.
Oh, I'm not excusing. No, not at all. Not excusing. He's guilty of grave sin here. Aaron is not excused at all. Precisely for that reason. Yeah.
So then my final is, so after Solomon got taken away, was it Jeroboam, he goes up there and they make golden calf.
Yeah. Right. Well, you're getting a little ahead, but that's good. But I mean, this is where you have to think this way. This is the whole history of Israel in the Old Testament. Right? What is, when God sends the prophets later, what are they all prophesying? Stop mixing worship of Yahweh with worship of pagan idols. Stop it. God, Yahweh is a jealous God. He will not share the stage. That's what they're all, right? And you better stop, or he's going to allow foreign countries to come in and destroy you. Knock it off. You see this over and over. Jeremiah, Isaiah, right? And he sends prophets to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and because they're both guilty of the same thing. Because this gets into a whole another can of worms. But why does God tell Joshua and the Israelites to go in and kill them all? Even the women and children, all just kill them all. Remove any possibility of any of their pagan influence, right? And of course they don't. And we could talk a lot about why God said that and blah, blah, blah. But my point is, they don't, and they never did, they never do. And so they're always having these pagan influences around them. Right? And the more they live with them, the more they get to know them, the more they like them, they're people too. They're doing business with them, they're trade, right? Everything's good. And so they learn about their religions and then they try to merge them, which is the sin of blended worship. When you try to do the liturgy and contemporary at the same time. God is so awful. Don't do that.
So it's like today where people say we all worship the same God.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right.
They just do it in a different way.
That's what all you Americans believe. The God on your currency is whatever God you worship. It's fine. Right? American civil religion is not Christianity, folks.
Tolerance.
Yeah, it's tolerance, it's syncretism. It's whatever God you worship is fine. And we know this because whenever American civil religion gets together for a worship service,
Yeah.
they invite religious priests or whatever, leaders, ministers, from all kinds of different, not just different Christians, but different religions. And then when somebody says no, that person is an intolerable puke. Like when an LCMS pastor says, I'm sorry, like when there's a tragedy and the LCMS pastor says, I will have our service and you're all invited, but I can't participate in that syncretistic, multi-religion fest. I can't. It's against my religion. I can't do it. Well, we're not going to come to yours because you're not, right? Oh gosh, we've seen this play out time and time again. Roman Catholic priests have no problem participating in them because they're Holy Mother Church and you can't harm them. And all Christians have to come home eventually anyway. And since Vatican II, there's more ways to God than just Jesus.
Really?
Really? Yeah.
Show me one.
Anyway, so that you see this play out, and if you want to know how God feels about it, just read the Old Testament. What does he do? He sends the Assyrians in to the northern kingdom and destroys them. He sends the Babylonians into the southern kingdom. and just demolishes the temple and right? A good exercise, I try to do this every Holy Week. We used to do it here. We used to do it at morning matins where you read through the Book of Lamentations. You can break it up into 5 or 6 parts, very easily, and you read through it. What is the Book of Lamentations about?
Weeping, crying, lamenting
Over what?
the lost being carried off to Babylon.
The destruction of Jerusalem, right? And yeah, the Babylonian devastation and the Babylonian exile, because they're all carried off into a foreign land. And when you read Lamentations, you see what remains in the city. It's not pretty. Jeremiah weeps as he writes Lamentations. They're being forced to even eat their children to survive because they're starving, right? I mean, it's gruesome. And that happens because God doesn't play these games. He's not a God. He doesn't share the stage. He's slow to anger, abounding, and we're going to see that. He's slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, gracious, merciful. But he's also just. He's like Aslan the lion. He's a wonderful lion, but you don't want to mess with him. Yeah. Oh, I thought you had your hand up.
I did.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I did. I just commenting on, God did all these things to him because they didn't listen. But yet here we are. Here we still,
Yeah.
we still bastardize
Right,
every
exactly.
one of the 10 commandments.
Yeah. Thank God that he's slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. That's what you have to. You can make arguments based on God's word because God tells us what is right, what is true, what is wrong, what is false, right? But you don't do it in a holier than thou way, and that's what I would be accused of. By contemporary, by other Lutherans who think contemporary worship is just fine. You somehow think you're better than us, or you blah blah blah. It's like, no. I just want to be where God is, and you don't. So I am better than you. Anyway. You could get major argument because when you start making these arguments, and Lutherans have been arguing about this stuff for a long time. But this idea that you can have, I've written it on the board and we've talked about it, but this idea that you can have evangelical style and maintain your Lutheran substance is just false. You can't. It doesn't work. We have the data to prove it now. Stop it. You can't worship according to a completely different theology and then maintain this other theology. It just does not work. There's so many analogies you could use, but it's like having a mistress. You have the evangelical style as a mistress. You can go and enjoy your mistress without losing the substance of your marriage to your wife. You can't. You might be able to hide that and whatever for a while, but your substance has been destroyed. You're not being faithful. Are you tracking with me, or you should argue with me more? It's funner when you argue. So what they end up, a few more things, because I just want to, what they end up doing is, instead of asking the question, what has God commanded, they end up asking the question, what will attract people? And it just drives me bonkers. because I can't think of any. We were talking about Paul Harvey earlier. If I were the devil, I would get people to stop asking what has God commanded and instead ask what will attract more people. If I were the devil, I would get people to say, we need to design our worship based on what the unchurched want instead of what the churched need. And you could go on with this, right? And here's the damage it does. I'll wrap up with this and then we'll continue on. But here's the damage it does. This is why it's important. Because what you end up doing is you end up presenting a God who is primarily comforting, affirming, and non-threatening. A God who could be a really good pal of yours. A God you want to hang out with. What's the old political ad, the old political thing? I'd really like to have, you want to create a person who you'd really like to have a beer with. Right? Who cares about what he thinks or what his positions? He's just I'd like to have a beer with him.
But
That used to be the criteria. Now it's just, is there an R or a D next to their name? I don't care anything about the person. That's why we do it now. Yeah.
But with a really good friend, don't you want somebody who's honest with you?
Yes,
And
exactly.
tells you when you're.
That's the third point. That's the third point. Yeah. And what do you learn? What this fosters is a dishonest relationship. Yeah, exactly right. It's not God. That's a God of your imagination. God you really like, he's a really good pal. All of your favorite contemporary praise songs are really just cheesy love songs written to Jesus by somebody. Or written to God. Usually it's the generic God. Jesus, not mentioned in most. How I feel about you, God, you know. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above. You know, it's like, okay, which God are you talking about? A Muslim could sing that song just as easily as a Christian or a Jew, right? Yeah.
Well, I think Calvary's kind of a living, breathing testimony, but that doesn't work. I mean, we had two pastors that were really into the, what do you call it?
Contemporary?
Contemporary services, and reaching out and doing souls for souls, and you name it, we did it. We never gained a single.
Yeah, right. Because, and then, but even if you do, are you creating? What are you creating? What are you gaining? I should say, or what are the people you're bringing in gaining? But what is the church gaining? If nothing,
The core group lost
exactly.
their cohesiveness.
Right.
We lost that.
Yeah,
So
that's what happened in my home congregation too. When they started bringing us in, you know, we had a great congregation, like 500, 600 members. That our pastor who started the church in 1980, in the early 80s or something, with just 4 or 5 people, you know. So the Lord was blessing that place tremendously. And what ended up happening, I'm not going to go through the whole story, but what ends up happening, what I've seen over and over again, not just in that church, but in many, is, you know, you have, let's just say you have 100 core members, which is a huge church anyway these days. Let's say you have 50 core members, right? Dedicated members, regular attendees, you know, and then you've been doing the liturgy their whole life, the traditional, right? You've been preaching long gospel sermons, you've been being a Lutheran. And then your pastor, you get a new pastor or your pastor decides to change gears and we're going to totally do this other thing. You might bring people in, but a lot of this core group's going to leave. I witnessed it over and over again. You know, you get a bunch of people that leave, and you know, so you gain And when you're talking about churches that size, you gained 100 people this year. Yeah, but you lost 75 idiots. And the 75 were your core people. Because I guarantee with this fluff, with this cotton candy nonsense you feeding these people, they're not going to be core people. And they're going to float away. And guess what? They do. So you lose your core, you lose the Lutherans, the true people, the believers, and you replace it with all these, it's a mile wide and an inch deep theology. It's just terrible. And you just get this constant turnover. And it's all because of the golden calf. People want the golden calf. Verse 7, and the Lord said to Moses, go down, for your people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted them. So I love it.
He's saying it like
He's
this.
so ticked off.
Your people.
He's blaming, he's putting it all on Moses.
He's already disowned them.
And Moses is thinking, wait, my people?
I've been up here for 40 days.
I wanted to stay in Midian. I was perfectly happy in Midian. I even told you I couldn't do it. Whatever. They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And Yahweh said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation of you. In other words, leave me alone, they're dead. I'm destroying all of them, and we'll start over with you. That's the threat. But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people? Because they're worshiping idols, idiot, but whatever. Why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you, not me, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, with evil intent did he bring them out, to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger and relent from this disaster against your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever. Pretty good prayer. And it worked.
Has good points.
Good points.
Pretty bold.
Yeah,
Pretty bold.
I mean,
Pretty bold.
Yeah,
And
just say
exactly,
that. Yeah, right.
let's just say that, exactly what Yahweh wants to hear. He set him up for it. These people you brought out, Moses, I'm going to go kill them all. Wait, whoa. You brought them
Whose
here.
idea was this in the first place?
And are you going to really destroy them now? Didn't you make all these promises? God, the reason I'm saying that God, this is exactly what God wants. He's teaching Moses. This is a teaching moment. He wants Moses to intercede for his people. He wants him to hold God accountable to his own promises. And he wants the same of you. You can always take to the bank a promise of God. And you can always put that before him and say, whoa. You can't do this. I'm baptized. Right? This is Luther's with his students. He's playing around with them. I don't know if it's table talk or I can't remember where it is, but he's saying, if I get to heaven, and St. Peter's at the pearly gates playing around with him, and he tells me I can't get in, I'm going to say, you go get Jesus. And Jesus comes to the gate, and if he tries to tell me I can't go in, no. You have to let me in. You promised to let me in. I was baptized into your death and resurrection, bub. I believed the gospel. I ate and drank your body and blood, dude. You gotta let me in. And Jesus will say, yeah, you're right. You're right. Come on in.
I was just missing.
Sounds blasphemous, I know, but I mean, but we can always hold God to his promises. In fact, that's what he wants us to do. Because if you're holding God to his promises, you're remembering his promises. And hopefully you're living in those promises, right? So it's a beautiful thing. Also, but you also got to say, this is a picture of Jesus, of course. Christ is the one who mediates for us now. And he doesn't have to say, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants. Remember all the promises you made. No. All Jesus has to do is show the Father his hands and his feet and his side. And that's it. He doesn't even have to speak a word. It's done. I know. They get a little out of control. I know really being bad, I know your wrath wants to consume them, but it already consumed me. You have no more wrath. There's no wrath left for them. That's the gospel. It's beautiful. Verse 15. It's a long chapter. Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets that were written on both sides. On the front and on the back, they were written. Pretty important to say that, I guess. The tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, as they sang their contemporary praise songs, he said to Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. Yeah. But he said, it is not the sound of shouting for victory or the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of contemporary praise service. Singing that I hear. And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, liturgical dancers, Moses' anger burned hot. Now he's mad. He's the one, he just got done praying. Don't be mad at them. Don't destroy them. Now he's ready to destroy them. His anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. So Mel Brooks was wrong in his movie. He didn't just break one tablet, he broke all of them. He took the calf that they had made and burned it with fire and ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the people of Israel drink it. Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you have brought such a great sin upon them? Who does he blames Aaron, and he should. That's where my blame is too. My blame is not on the people who have grown to love and enjoy these contemporary worship services in these LCMS churches. I don't blame them at all. I blame the pastors who began to teach these people that our theology of worship is just like the theology of worship of the Methodist who do not believe that Jesus is present among us. I blame them. I don't blame the people. Moses does the same. He doesn't blame the people. He blames Aaron. And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people, that they are set on evil. For they said to me, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So I said to them, let any who have gold take it off. So they gave it to me, and I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. I love that part. I don't know, Moses. I just threw the gold in, and
Oop, there it was.
what did it say earlier? Aaron, verse 4, and he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And he tells Moses, that just, I don't know, just, how came this calf?
Story, but it don't work too good.
Right, it's a cool story, yeah. And when Moses saw that the people had broken loose, for Aaron had let them break loose to the derision of their enemies, then Moses stood to the gate of the camp and said, who is on Yahweh's side? Come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. And he said to them, thus says Yahweh God of Israel, put your sword on your side, each of you, and go to and fro from gate to gate throughout the camp, and each of you kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor. That's a good place to end. We'll go in peace. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and that day about 3,000 men of the people fell. And Moses said, today you have been ordained for the service of Yahweh, each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, so that he might bestow a blessing upon you this day. So there's a grave punishment. Now, this is written in summary form. Who did the Levites kill? Just randomly, any of their brothers or...
Probably the people that were leading this whole
Yeah,
charge.
exactly. These were guilty. These were people guilty of idolatry. All the people were, but I mean, these were the...
Because there were a lot more than 3,000.
Yeah, you got to remember that. There's a couple million people here. So 3,000 out of a couple of million is like what? 0.004% or something? Just making that up. It'd be funny if somebody had a calculator and figured it out and it was 0.004%. It's nothing. It's not nothing, of course, but you know, I mean, it's, but people read that and they're, these are people that guilty that deserve to die. Plus the Levites, they're going to be commissioned to be priests of the Lord. And right here, right off the bat, they're being taught this is serious business. There's a lot more we could say to that, but we've got to go here in a minute, so I want to read through this next section. Yeah, let's just get to the end of this, and we'll talk more about it next time. The next day Moses said to the people, you have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to Yahweh. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. Because sin always needs atonement. Sin must always be punished. Somebody has to die. Blood must be shed. So Moses returned to Yahweh and said, alas, this people has sinned a great sin. They have made for themselves gods of gold. But now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written. But now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written.
That's kind of bold too.
It's very bold. This is kind of a Christ-like thing though, right? I'm going to die for them. I'm going to unite myself so much to them that if they die, I die. Right? I mean, it's, anyway. Devotion, compassion, all kinds of stuff you could say about it. But the Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. But now go, lead the people to the place about which I have spoken to you. In other words, I'll do what I want. I'm God. But whatever. which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. Then the Lord sent a plague on the people because they made the calf, the one that Aaron made. So this ends with, this section, this chapter ends with a plague, but it's not done yet. And we'll have to pick up here next week. But the main point being made here is that what do the people deserve because of this? Death, right? They deserve to be consumed. Yahweh was right. I'm going to consume them. Devour them with fire. They're done. That's what they deserve. Moses intercedes, holds God to his promises, but there still needs to be punishment. There are still consequences for sin. There's always temporal consequences for sin. Even if you get away with it, your conscience is seared. There's always some temporal consequence to sin. But we'll have to get more into that next week. So we're not done with chapter 32. There's a lot more to say about it. And the story continues. It's great, so great, such a great story.
And I love that Moses says, perhaps.
Perhaps, exactly.
Perhaps I can. I don't know. I just think that's funny because, those people are down there thinking, oh crap, God's just going to come down and smoke us. There's no comfort in Moses' words to them. Like, no guarantees here, people.
Here's another thing, real quick, because you're reminding me of something. This is why, this is not the people's doing, this is Yahweh's doing. He's spending 40 days with Moses. And when this is one thing I would say, when you're away from the Lord for some kind of length of time, you do forget his promises. You drift away, right? They heard, think about that in relation to this people. They've seen all these miracles, man. Come through the Red Sea on dry ground, a pillar of cloud, a pillar of fire leading them. Right? Moses hit a rock and so many gallons of water came out, they were all 2 million of them could drink. I mean, it was just they've seen miracle after miracle. Then they get to Sinai and they hear their God. And then, a couple months later, they're making themselves a golden calf, and they forget. If you're away from the Word for any length of time, you forget. It's easy for the devil to then fill that void with worldly stuff. And then it's harder to come back. It's easier to stay away. It becomes a new habit. How many of you have seen this over the years? People would come to church all the time, and then all of a sudden and you never see them again. All right. We got to go. We're way late. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen. And we are